Welcome to the Social Work Rants podcast, providing a platform for social workers to share their stories. The podcast covers a wide range of topics, including mental health, social justice, policy, and the day-to-day realities of the profession. This season, season 9, we'll be focusing on the mental and emotional aspects of money for people of color. Hope you enjoy. Hello, social workers, mental health professionals, and change agents. Welcome to another episode of the Social Work Rants podcast. I'm your host, Bas Moreno. Saludos a todos. Greetings, everybody. Thank you for tuning in, tapping in wherever you are watching or listening to this podcast. I appreciate all the love and support. Gracias a todos por su apoyo. Continue to follow the podcast on social media outlets such as Instagram at the Social Work Rants podcast. That is on one word. I'm still on X at Social Work Rants and on Facebook, aka Meta, at the Social Work Rants podcast. Hit the like button. And of course, the YouTube, hit that red subscribe button. And of course, however you listen to the podcast, download episodes, share, however you listen to podcast episodes, Apple, Spotify, however you listen to it, just type it in and share and like, subscribe to podcast episodes. And my voice sounds a little different than usual. My voice is still recovering from watching definitely like the greatest high school football game I ever watched. Whether live in person, definitely live because I don't do high school football. But my town's high school football team won the state championship. So like I went to go support my son's school, and they came back from a 24-6 deficit and came back in overtime to beat their rivals. So I'm still hoarse from that. So as of this recording, last Thursday, so I still got that deep, sexy voice like the Michael from Boys to Men voice. So yep. Mike, we're gonna talk about money as we gear towards the crunch time towards the end of 2024 and start thinking about 2025 and finances and getting our money together, all that good stuff. And I'm glad that social workers have been talking about money at least more and more recently within the last couple of years. So what better way to continue that theme and talk about money? Before I introduce my guest, have her talk about herself. The podcast is sponsored by Bas Moreno Consulting, talk about money. Bassity Bas Moreno Consulting is my company talking about financial education for people of color in the sandwich generation, counseling, because caregiving and finances and all that stress that comes with caregiving and finances, we're struggling out here. So for more information, go to basmorenoconsulting.com and let's talk about finances, talk about caregiving, and it's okay to, if your kids are annoying you and those who you're taking care of, they annoy you at the same time, is okay to, let's acknowledge those feelings. So definitely let's have a conversation about that. So Lindsey Konchar, how you doing, my friend?
I am good. Thank you for having me.
Good. Pleasure. Glad you were able to come, make this happen, and talk all things finances as we gear up the last month of 2024, gearing up for 2025. So people who don't know who you are, let people know who you are.
Yeah, so I am Lindsey, as you said. I am a financial therapist. So I'm actually a certified financial social worker. That is my credentialing. And I merge behavioral therapy with financial education. And so I've been licensed since 2019, after I got my MSW. And then I had always kind of loved money, just like learning about it, and at least for the last, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years. And I really am passionate about just learning about how money works and teaching my kids about money and helping other people with their money. And I always wanted to incorporate that into my practice, but I didn't know how to do it until about 2 years ago when I learned that financial social work is in fact a thing and that I qualified for the credentialing. So the rest is history. I took the certification program and started my own business and kind of built it all the way up from the ground. And here we are. So, yeah.
Well, that's so cool. So talk a little bit about your business, and you say from the ground up, and that's something that I talk ad nauseum about. Not they don't teach us none of that stuff in our MSW programs. So what was that like process like for you?
Yeah, so totally agree. And it's such a shame that there's none of that really taught. Like we should have at least one business class in an MSW program. Maybe that's the next thing to start advocating for. But it was really frustrating for a while because I felt like I knew money and I knew therapy, but I knew nothing about business. And so shortly after getting the certification, my husband and I were talking, and I just said, I think I need a business mentor. Like, I think I need to at least take a course on it or something, because me trying to like flounder is just going to be a waste of time. And we know time is money. so,
Mm.
um, so yeah, I really went both feet in and I bought a course on business and familiarized myself with like common practices. Like I had never even taken a business course in undergrad. I had never taken a business course in high school. Like I knew nothing. And when I started learning about, how to do market research and how to do, I don't know, everything, that was really, really helpful for me. And I am, a huge advocate, of getting help when you need help and, not just trying to do things on your own all the time, whether it's in the mental health realm or anything else. And so I was just very happy to say, I don't know anything about this and I need to learn about it. So that was definitely, having that support has been really invaluable for me.
That yeah, I was kind of floundering around first couple of years with my business too. It didn't help that I did not do market research initially. Got caught up in the 2020 wave of get an LLC, and I mean, it did help when it came to tax time. Um, but still kind of like, all right, I need to get a business coach, and kind of like that's what kind of started like my money journey with my business, and kind of go from there, like the messaging and who I want to target, what all that stuff that comes with marketing and finding your ideal client, and trying to eventually get clients. So yeah, it's definitely been a journey. And yeah, it should have been at least a couple of business courses in MSW programs for sure.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think it's interesting that you say that too, because for so many people, like the only thing that they know about business finances versus personal finances is keep them separate. Like that's what everyone says. And that's kind of the extent of their knowledge. And yet, many people I encounter are either not keeping them separate, which we got to fix, and if they are, then they almost like don't know what to then do with their business income. Like there's no like system, there's no flow. And I kind of fall in the middle. Maybe it's an unpopular opinion, I don't know, but that like your business, anything that's happening in your business is supporting your personal finance. Like unless you have another W-2 or you have another source of income, your business income is your income. And so to have a systemized plan of like, okay, money comes in, 30% goes to taxes or whatever works for you or what your accountant says, right? And then your expenses obviously need to come out, and then trickling that into your personal finance. It all needs to be systemized and it does all flow together. So I think it is super important for any therapist to understand, or any mental health professional to understand how just like the basics of what your income is and what to do with it is vastly important. And yeah, it's definitely missed in post educational spaces.
Yeah, for real. Now, how did you discover the? I get this question all the time. How did you discover the certified financial program?
Yeah. So actually, funnily enough, I was driving, listening to an audiobook, like totally unrelated to, it was actually about parenting. And in the book, the author mentioned financial therapy. And I was like, hold up. And I paused the book. I was already on my street. I was super close to home and I pulled in my driveway and I came like flying through the door. And my husband was like, where are you going? What's happening? And I was like, I need to Google something right now. And so I did. I literally grabbed my laptop and I started Googling what is a financial therapist. And I learned that there is literally a certified financial therapist program, or there is a certified financial social work program. And I looked at the whole gamut of both of them, what they offer, how intensive they are, how expensive they are, everything. And I really just compared and contrasted the two. And I decided, because I'm a social worker and because I think that program also leaned hard into like the person and environment framework, and that's something that I practice. It just resonated with me a little bit more, and I figured I'd start there. And then if I want, another certification, I can always go back and get the CFT one. But so that was kind of the path that I took, and I was really happy with it. I think majority of the course was really helpful. I also think because I had been on my own financial self-care journey for so long that I kind of knew a lot of it. Like I don't have any credit card debt. I'm, all of that kind of stuff. So I was through a lot of the steps of where one might go. But yeah, super helpful, really cool, and it was a great program.
Yeah, it's definitely a great program. I love the fact that a financial social work textbook is coming out in 2025. So I'll purchase it to purchase it, to have it and kind of see what was in the book, and try to help myself, my own personal finances, and help my clients as we move along into the new year, and see what happens.
Yeah.
Um, so what are you seeing in terms of, like, you work with, with your business, where your clients, like, kind of people struggling the most in terms of finance stuff?
Yeah. So most of the work that I do, well, I guess it's kind of split. Honestly, most of the people that I see are therapists. It just
Okay.
happens to be like 80% of my caseload right now have a therapy background. I do a lot of couples work. So typically what happens is, and this is a generalization, but there's a lot of my clients kind of fit this mold, is there's a female therapist who comes to me and says, I need to understand money. I don't get it. My business expenses are all over the place. Like I don't know where my money is going, et cetera, et cetera. And my personal finances are kind of a mess. My husband does a lot of the finances, or I feel like I'm in the dark. I don't really know what's going on there. And so what happens is sometimes the couple is willing to start with me right off the bat together, which is really helpful. And other times she just wants to do sort of like business coaching slash financial therapy stuff for her specific business, to just like get that stuff in a row.
Hmm.
And all, together, and, separated out. Like I had one client who was like, my fax machine is getting pulled from my personal account, and my, wireless or my Wi-Fi or whatever is getting pulled from so, and it was just like, we just needed to go through and like, okay, line by line, which needs to go out of which, account. And so that's a really common scenario that I see. And then we really get into the nitty gritty stuff of the couple, who are often not on the same page. They're not prioritizing the same things, whether they realize that's kind of the issue or not. They often just find themselves fighting about money all the time, whether it's another Amazon package came to the door and one person blows up at the other, right? And just a lot of miscommunications there. So a lot of couples work. And then I do just see individuals for really anything related to like just getting their own personal finances in order. But again, most of the time it's somebody who's in private practice who needs to understand just general systems behind their actual business finances. And then again, trickling into their personal, because most commonly I see a lot of haphazard spending, a lot of mindless, one click to buy option purchases, things of that nature, and they're trying to rein it in. And they're really trying to understand why they're so susceptible to the marketing or why it is that they're spending the way they are. And they really want to introduce a little bit more intentionality into their spending.
Now, was that purposely, like when you were looking for clients that end up being therapists, or like how did that happen?
That was not on purpose. I don't know if it's just like people gravitate to me because that's my background, obviously. And I think the idea of like financial self-care and financial therapy is just a little bit more gentle. Like we have the Dave Ramseys of the world who are so shame-based, so like, you idiot, what are you doing? And like, right. And like, that's such a turnoff. People don't want that because it doesn't feel good. Like nobody wants to feel dumb for not knowing something that they never learned in school, never were taught in the home. Right. So why would like we simply know that shame doesn't actually work. And so I think the idea of financial therapy in general is just a little bit more inviting. It's a little bit more, I don't know, gentle maybe. And so for better for worse, I think a lot of my clients have come from either groups that I know, you know, friends of other therapists who have found me on, you know, mostly Instagram, maybe Facebook, I don't know. And or through my podcast, I suppose. So yeah, I think it's just happenstance that a lot of a lot of female therapists are like, hey, another female therapist, but this one knows about money and I don't. So let's go talk to her.
um, are you looking for more clients, or how does your practice? How does your practice work?
Yeah. So in September, kind of over the summer, I was actually very full. And then because then I was still working part-time. So I was a mom by day. My son will be 2 tomorrow, and my daughter is 4. And so for the last several years, I've been a mom by day and a financial therapist by nighttime, naps, and weekends. And after doing some of the calculations and running, you know, through a bunch of the numbers and doing a lot of the reverse engineering stuff and what have you, we really figured out that we've reached what's called coast fire. So if you're familiar, my husband and I have reached a point where if we never put another cent into our retirement savings, we will still retire, you know, at age 60 or 65 with multi-millions of dollars. And so we thought, okay, let's take a step back. My husband is working in corporate America. He's been there for almost a decade. He does not love corporate America. He also does not see his children for more than maybe an hour a day if he's lucky. And so, you know, over all that time, we'd really been planning and planning and planning. We decided, all right, let him come home. He's going to be with the babies for a while, and then I'll turn up the dial on being able to take more clients. And so, long-winded way to say, yes, I am currently taking clients because he officially retired in September, and now I am the sole breadwinner, and we have just opened up a couple more spaces on my caseload. So right now I'm seeing about 12 a week, and I'll probably see up to 15, and that'll probably be where I tap out.
Okay. Congrats to your husband on retirement, and happy birthday to your son.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, that's great that you had that at least stability that you necessarily don't have to work, and you don't have to work, and your husband's able to retire, and no time. There's not enough money for time to spend with small kids. There's no price to that because it goes by so fast.
It does. And I think, that was our huge motivation behind leaving. And I said, it's not that like maybe he'll go back to work at some point if he wants to. But I said, like, I've really had time to be away. I was home, for the first year, I didn't work at all for, paid labor with my daughter. And then I kind of had time and space to figure out what it is that I wanted to do and what direction I wanted to take my therapy practice. And if I wanted to go back into clinic work or generalist work or what, and I was really lucky to have that time. And now I feel like he is given that in his own way of like, if he wants to just be with the kids because he wasn't for so long, and he's a very engaged and active parent and he's so good with them, and he was missing them, and I was like, yeah, just be with them for a while, and you can decide. And what's nice is I do everything virtually, so I work from home. So like for him, he was commuting 45 minutes to work, then he would work his 10-hour day, and then he'd commute the 45 minutes back. And so it was way different than me seeing, like I said, 12 to 15 clients a week, being home, no commute, having lunch upstairs with my kids. Like it's a better fit for our family right now. And yeah, and to your point, it's a security thing, it's a safety thing. We feel stable enough to be able to do this for at least for now, and we'll see where the world takes us. But it was a risk to just drop down to one income and the whole thing, but a risk well worth taking, I think.
So what would like kind of like some tips for you to get where you at right now, that you're able to make that leap? I mean, one would hear like, okay, your husband works at corporate America. Like, all right, there's some advantages with some income regarding that, but I'm sure there's a lot more into. You can work at corporate America and still be living paycheck to paycheck if your finances are not together. But what for people going into the last part of these last few weeks of 2024, going into 2025, what are like some tidbits that people can want to get to where you're at right now? What's some tips that people could do to kind of start the process regarding that?
Yeah, I always start with every single person. One, you have to make the decision, right? Like you have to make the decision to, like I did, get the business mentor to like take the leap and do something that like might be challenging, might be fiscally scary, might be whatever it is. But if you don't know what you don't know, then you need support in that area. So that's usually what I say, whether that's your partner, your best friend, your mom, a financial therapist, like it doesn't matter who your support people are. But I think that's number one, right? Deciding how are you going to be supported through your journey, because financial self-care is a journey, make no mistake, right? There's going to be ups and downs and bumps and bruises along the way, and you learn from it, but it's a marathon. It is certainly not a sprint. And then always establish, I call them your North Stars, and I think it's just boiling down to like, what is it that you really want out of life? Again, for us, it was my husband being home and spending more time with me and with the kids, and just not being miserable for 10 to 12 hours a day every day. And then really to come home and just like not turn his brain off, like, all of that. And so whether that's like, I want to, maybe a lot of people have side hustles. Maybe they want to like just turn into their side hustle, or maybe they like having the two different things. There's a creative side of something, and then there's more of a workforce side of something, or whatever. But you really need to dial into you and figure out what it is that you want, right? And that would require being off social media for a little while, not looking at what everybody else is doing, what everybody else says they want, and just figuring out for you what makes sense in your life. And for if you're partnered with your partner, or if you're solo, like, do you want to stay in the state that you're in? Like, what is the dream, right? And then you can start establishing those North Stars, and those are going to be your guiding lights to get wherever it is that you're going. I made that sound like when my husband and I were planning this, that it happened very quickly for us, and it didn't. It was like 3 years ago. I was running some of the numbers, and I was like, I think that like maybe in a few years you could leave your job. Like if we really like do this, like I think you. And he was like, no way, that's never gonna happen. Whatever. We were joking about this actually last night, and then all of a sudden I was like showing him more of the numbers, and I was like, no, like I really think this could work. And he was like very slow to get on board. And he's the type who's like ties 15 nets and then kind of looks over the edge, and he's like, maybe I could jump, but like I'm just going to weave a couple more nets and then maybe I'll jump. And I'm like I don't know, I'm just going to like run off this cliff and jump and something will catch me. I don't know what it's going to be, but like we'll figure it out. So we're very opposite in that way. And he was probably right in how long we waited and the whole process. But we had our North Star of where we wanted to get to. I wanted to work a little bit more than I was, not full time, but I wanted to do more than I was. And he wanted to leave where he was. And so it made it really easy for us to make purchasing decisions when we're out and about to say, like, is this aligned with our goals? Is that getting us closer to the end goal of you being home and me tuning, more into my business? Or is that getting us further away? And we didn't like stop spending altogether. I think that is horribly unsustainable and right. But we were really intentional with our spending. We've made decisions that I am sure some people would be like, oh, I would never. Like, we live in a relatively small house, but we're happy here because our mortgage is really low and we have a great interest rate. And so a lot of people in our lives have tried to convince us, like, oh, you're going to want a bigger house. And I'm like, maybe that's true. But right now, we want time together more than we want a bigger house. Right. So I think looking at some of those decisions, there's one of the most important things you can do, but it's really individualized. It's really unique to what you yourself, the listener, want in life.
No, I like that. Especially I wouldn't leave a house with interest rates anything but below from 2021 and below. So
no way, yeah, our interest rate is 2.25. I'm like, we will die
wow.
here. There is we're not going anywhere.
Yeah, I'm at a 275. It's like I guess we'd be making repairs.
Yeah, you'll be staying there.
Yeah. Until I get that millionaire status, and then like, all right, I'll buy somewhere in another state.
For sure.
But yeah, like the interest rates I think right now is like hovering like 7%. I was like, it's crazy right now.
It is, and it's so funny though. My dad was a realtor for like 40 plus years. And so I was talking to him recently about just this, like our interest rate is so low. And we ended up at the same time that we refinanced into our lower interest rate, we rolled into a 15-year mortgage instead of a 30-year because of how the calculations worked out for us. And so we were just talking about that. And I didn't realize, but in the 80s, interest rates were as high as 18%. Can you imagine? I'm like, that is something I hope to never see again ever in my lifetime. So, I mean, I wasn't born in the 80s, but still.
Yeah, that's absolutely insane. 18%. I mean, that's only good for a high yield savings account. So that's about it. That's be like the only positive for interest rate that high. Everything else would be a credit card. People going to start paying back student loans again very soon, and who knows what who I call Agent Orange, what he's going to do regarding that. So it's a lot of unknowns, which leads to a lot of the anxiety and all these tariffs are going to potentially happen, and people complain about gas prices before.
That is something I swear I filled up gas this morning for $2.59 per gallon. And I just can't understand. I'm like, where is everyone telling me that the economy is crumbling? I'm like, unemployment is way down. Inflation is at 2.3%, which is lower than the average of 3%. My gas prices are very clearly telling me that our economy is doing just fine. And I understand, of course, like we are still suffering the repercussions from COVID, but that is not due to the current administration. Like, and I'm struggling to understand how we possibly elected that thing. But it's happening. So
but you bring a good point, because I always talk about this too, is like the aftermath of COVID was never addressed in so many different ways, like from education to just everyday day-to-day life, and it was not mentioned in these 4 years by either one, Biden or Harris, and is like nothing in state, local, at least not where I'm at, really talked about that. So it's like, okay, COVID happened, and yeah, and then and we're trying to prevent another somehow, some way, trying to prevent that and another one. So, but just the in between data, because I see it every day. People are really struggling, like with paying rent and trying to find food. Even like nurses, like working out in state hospitals and things like that. Like this, you would think people will have it having they really don't seeking food and having issues with paying the utility bills. So like I see it. So I kind of understand what people are saying, like, or the economy, this, but everything else, like, just, inflation is definitely way down than it was before. Like you said, like things are kind of in the right direction. They had been even like a year ago. So it's, I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Yeah, and I feel the same way. It's correcting from what I can tell. And I think all these people have some crazy notion that, like, well, all the prices are going to go down. And I'm like, do you know what deflation does to an economy? Like, we don't hope for deflation. We're kind of here. What we hope for is wage increases. Like, we need the wages to go up so we can match. Like, I mean, obviously, housing is crazy. We need more houses. Like, there's just so many bigger policies, and to your point, that were really not addressed by a lot of on either side of the administration. I will say with like Harris, it was really nice to see her policy for like first time home buyers, which I don't know, like I guess I kind of have mixed feelings on that, but having a tax break for first time home buyers, okay, cool.
Mm,
Like, but we also need more housing. Like, we are quite
mm.
literally running out of houses. And so the demand is so high. And so for that to just simply not be addressed by the elected administration feels frustrating in many ways, but here we are. Here we are.
Or even when he was in office the first time around, having a heart surgeon running the housing department.
I cannot, every single cabinet member that he's picking, I'm like, what? Why? Like, I'm trying really hard to understand it. And I really try to not fall into the catastrophization and to really ground myself in like, what are the facts here? Like, where are we going with this? Like, and understanding it. But like, the woman that he's chosen for the head of education, I just like, there's so much confusion in my brain that I'm, again, trying to like rip myself in fact, and like, we've gotten through this before. It feels a little different this time due to the fact that, I don't know, the whole House is now red, the whole Senate is now red, the
Mm.
whole,
Supreme Court is red.
yeah. So like, that I don't love. That is honestly my biggest worry. But I'm also like, I have this thing with like, I hate that, there's been so much, I've seen a lot of people like marketing to like right after the election, like, well, this is what you need and this is what you need. And in many ways, I'm like, I hate that. And I genuinely believe that your individual finances are your escape. Like, it was my husband's escape out of corporate, right? Is to have enough money that we have saved and invested. And that was how we had the stability to like live the life. And I know, as a white woman, I am very unlikely to be as affected by so many other people are going to be by the administration. I understand that and I recognize that privilege 100%. And we have the financial means to help us through any sort of scenario that we need to, right? And so like, I really think if you can like turn the dial up on understanding how money works, get yourself in a solid financial position, you are going to feel so much safer than if you're not attuned to your money, if you don't know where your expenses and your income is coming from and going, and the whole thing. And unfortunately, because it was never taught again in schools or in your home,
Mm.
it's a really intimidating and overwhelming topic to really like start stepping into, especially if you've been avoiding it for so long. And it's hard to explain, that safety and that security, that feeling of that, until you've actually experienced it. And so I can only hope that like, that is one avenue that people lean into. Like I said, whether it's working with me or it's working with you or it's working with anybody that feels like the right fit for them, I really encourage people to find that support and to read the books, listen to the podcast, start learning all that you can about how to take care of yourself financially, because it really does put you in a position that is just much safer.
Mm. And one thing about the first Agent Orange presidency term, um, it really didn't matter who was in office. Like it goes to your point about your own personal finances, your own personal finances. There's only so much federal policy, like if he cuts food stamps, like yes, people that's one trickle down effect, like people are gonna see and gonna feel. And I dealt with that working with clients when he cut food stamps in 2017, 2018, whenever I think it was more 2018 where he cut the food stamps and kind of explained to people like my severely mentally ill clients I was working with at the time, like why the food stamps got cut. It was like it's coming from the federal government. So it's like trying to explain that to them. And so things like that, like issues with Medicaid and Medicare, like people actually gonna feel that. But in terms of if you have a working 9 to 5 or you have a business and you're still struggling day to day, like your personal finances will actually like doesn't matter who's in office, like if you able to handle like your credit card debt or budget for your student loan payments that are due very very soon, like things like that, like day-to-day stuff that you could get rid of some debt and kind of open a high yield savings account, put some money in there and kind of learn to manage your own finances, then yeah, you should be all right having like 3 to 6 months expenses in a bank account just for emergency fund. Like it's kind of those different things like that will kind of you'll be all right. You'll be kind of on the struggle bus, but at least you're not be like, oh my god, what I'm going to do. So that's kind of like
Totally.
your kind of to like your point where you were saying earlier.
Yeah, it's so, I think what I really want people to understand is how emotional these decisions are, right? Is like it can feel really restrictive, or it can feel like you're depriving yourself of like all, I've had like a reel or whatever go viral when I was like, if you spend $27.40 a day, that ultimately adds up to $10,000 in the year. And so many people commented on that and said, well, I just need a little treat. And I'm like, okay, sure, maybe you do. Maybe you do. But also, like, we are, again, having that understanding of how you are being marketed to. We're constantly on our phones, and we have in 3 taps of our thumb, we can have it's literally a magic carpet that has now dropped
Mm-hmm.
a package off at our door. And it's not just Amazon. I mean, that's one of the big ones, right? But it's anything. Like, it is so utterly convenient to spend money now that it is harder for you to stop yourself from spending that money. And sure, to your point, there are absolutely things that we need to be aware of. Again, housing prices being crazy, foods, if the SNAP program gets cut, like all of that is out of our control, but there is a lot that is in our control. And often I see people having a really unhealthy relationship with like DoorDash. Like, just stand up off of your couch, and you will instantly feel no longer the need to DoorDash something to yourself. You will instead find yourself walking to your refrigerator. So I call these micro barriers, right? Where we're like doing small things to actually inconvenience ourselves a little bit in order to not spend money so much. So, like, taking your credit cards off of your phone or off of your computer, so you literally have to stand up to spend money, is going to prevent a lot of mindless, reckless, haphazard spending, right? It's just putting a little bit more intentionality into your spending, which is going to make a world of difference in many cases. Like, same goes for unsubscribing to emails that you are very influenced by. When I see 40% off something, I'm like, maybe I should click on that email, right? Unsubscribe. And these are like little things. That's
Mm.
certainly not getting to the root cause. But I think really having those can be really small things that you start introducing to see some big wins right off the gate, because we know that can be a huge motivator to propel you forward into more like, oh yeah, wait, I usually was spending $1,000 on DoorDash a month. Now I only spent 200. What else can I do? Where else can I find money? Right. And it's like these
Mm-hmm.
little hidden pockets of like, yeah, here's some over here, here's some over there. I have a lot of moms on my caseload who are like, I spend because I don't feel like a good mom. And so I just want to make sure that I'm buying my kids all this stuff. And I'm like, okay, we need to talk more about how you are, in fact, a good mom, and how spending money on your kids is actually having the opposite effect of what you want it to have, right? Like we are teaching them instant gratification versus delayed gratification. And we ourselves as adults also need to have a lesson in how delayed gratification is actually so much better for our psyche. And so there's so many different elements and layers to it. But yeah, I totally agree with you. Like the individualized component of all of this is like there's a lot that is still in your control, whether or not it feels like it right now. I understand that like we are in this weird black box of like what is going to happen to the world. I'm there. And I feel like if you can turn into like what it is that you can control, right? Talking about centers of control, what is in yours is going to be really helpful and really grounding in times of unknown, in times of uncertainty.
It's funny you mentioned those examples, and one thing that came to mind for me that what I did recently was like my utility bill. So I have a house, and so the water, the sewage, comes in, and the electric comes all in one bill. So in order to use my credit card, they charge me, and this is from like my town that I live in. They charge me like almost like $8 just to use my card, like a convenience fee. So I did. I recently changed jobs over the summer. I'm like, so I work 2 days from home. So like, why am I paying this almost like $8 in fees? So I got my ass up, got in my car, drove to to City Hall, and made the payment in person and saved myself my $8 a month, and been doing that ever since I got the job. So I'm already like saved like $25 in like the last like 3 months.
Which is like, I know it sounds little, like someone's like, oh, what's $25 going to do, right? And if you want to, if that's the framework of like, well, what's the $25 going to do? Who cares, right? It's like, well, you're approaching this the wrong way. Like you already are coming at it from a negative mindset. Instead, I'm like, I don't know, there's a lot I could do with that $25. That's awesome. And also to like stick it to the man who wants to pay $8 for a convenience charge. Like, I don't want to pay that. I would for sure get in my car and drive, right? And this is, I think, when you have to really tune into again, it's not wrong to pay that $8. It's not right to pay that $8. It is what it is, and where you can meet yourself where you're at. If you're like, no, I genuinely do not have the time to sit in my car and drive to the place and drop off the check, and I'm happy to pay the $8 convenience fee, fine. If you can afford it, do it. But if you can't afford it and you are in high interest credit card debt, or you have those student loans kicking back in and it's scary for you, then no, you can't really afford it, and inconvenience yourself to go to the place and actually pay, right? And save the money. Like it's little decisions like that that also make such a huge difference in how you end up kind of growing and like finding yourself in this bigger, better place. And so that's awesome. That's a great story.
Yeah, and even like shopping around like the Cyber Monday, Monday type, no, Black Friday type of deals. Like even like today, like I like canceled my Peacock subscription and just changed my email address and got a new package, and saved myself already like $85 from like next year already. Just I did the math, $7.99 a month times 12 was like that adds up so real quick, and you'd be surprised.
It feels so good to do stuff like that. I did that 4 years ago. We switched from what did I have? I don't know, Verizon or something, or maybe AT&T. I don't know, something like that. Anyway, and I switched to Mint Mobile, and we actually ran the calculation on it. My husband was really hesitant. He was like, a budget carrier? That sounds like it's going to be shit service and blah, blah. Sorry, can I say that? And the whole thing. And I was like, I'm going to switch it, and you're not going to know. He was on a separate phone line plan at that point anyway. And I was like, I'm going to switch. I'm not going to tell you when I switch. And if you notice a difference in the quality of my service, then we'll go back to, Verizon or whatever it is that I had. And he was like, okay, deal. So I did. Of course, he did not notice because it was totally fine. And I pay $20 a month for my phone. We literally now save over $2,000 a year by switching our phone plans. So over the last 4 years, we have saved over $8,000 because we made the one simple switch to the quote unquote budget carrier that he was like worried was going to be a terrible provider. And it has proven to be nothing but great. We've had wonderful service, and it's been totally fine. and we're locked in it. We each pay $20 for our phones every month. That's it. Like, those are the decisions that people like. One, if you're not aware of it, you can't make the decision to change. But if you are aware of it, then make the decision to change.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. I literally tried to do, because I used to have Boost, and I'm like, I want to go back to Boost, and it's like, but it told me I gotta like pay off our phones first before.
Mm.
I was like, darn it! I was like so looking forward to switching. Google. I know I'm paying way too much for cell
I
phone
don't think
service.
I don't know much about. There's one called Visible, and that's like Verizon's like budget carrier whatever plan. And then there's Mint, who was actually just acquired, I think last year by T-Mobile. But there was a huge thing about the acquisition that, they were like, we want to make sure that this stays to affordable, like et cetera, et cetera. But you can still, I think with those two, you can still switch to their service. And I don't know if the loan on your phone stays with like whoever it is that you're currently with or how it works, but you can, I know, I'm almost positive, I should say I'm like 98% positive that with Mint you can switch. I'm pretty sure with Visible you can as well. And I personally don't use Visible, but my clients do because they had Verizon. It was just an easier switch for them, and they said that they've had a great experience with it. So I highly recommend looking into it because I don't know much about Boost anymore. But if you can't switch to that one, look at your other options.
Yeah, I'm gonna look at Mint and coverage in Delaware, because I do drive by like farmland and things like
Yeah,
that.
for
So you got
sure.
to make sure that that is compatible to where I live at.
Yeah, and they do a free test. That's super nice because they same thing. Like their philosophy is like, well, if we can't provide you good service, then we don't want unhappy customers, right? And so I actually really like their philosophy and their approach to customer service. But they'll do that. So they'll do a like a tower check and make sure that it's good in your area, and they will tell you like if it is or if it's not. And then you also, if you do switch, you gotta. I sound like I'm like a salesperson for them, which I am not. But I just have had a good experience with them. But you get a free week. So if you have it for a week and 5 days in, you're like, yeah, the service isn't as good as I thought it was going to be or whatever, you can switch back and there's no charge, there's no problem, which is kind of nice too.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
The more
definitely
you
gonna.
know.
I'm definitely gonna look, because it's like, darn it, I definitely want to switch.
Yeah.
Because I need to use that money saved and put in this stock market, because it's been going crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. And then putting it towards those North Stars and getting you closer to your goals. It's like, that's what it's all about. It's one big game of Monopoly, right? It's figuring out what actually makes sense for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Where can people find you?
Yeah, so I'm a solopreneur still, so it is just me. I am financial therapist Lindsey on Instagram. That's where I hang out the most. I actually don't even have a TikTok. I'm not with the times. But so you can come find me, DM me. I'm there. It's me answering you, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have. And then my website is financialselfcareblog.com, and my podcast is Financial Self Care with financial therapist Lindsey, merging all the things. So you can come find me. You can email me. Like I said, it's me responding to you. I actually do exist behind the keyboard. But yeah, come say hi. Tell me you listened to this episode and what you thought. I would love to chat with you. And if people have questions about financial therapy, I'm more than happy to help.
Awesome. Great talking to you, and we'll chat soon.
Yeah, thank you so much.